Great. Well, I think we've got most people, most registrations come, which is great to see. Welcome everyone this morning. Good to see so many of you. So welcome to the CWSI Threat Hunting webinar, The War Against Ransomware. So we're going to be taking hopefully about 45 minutes this morning and leaving plenty of time to fill the hour for any questions anyone has throughout the session. So in terms of an agenda for today, we're going to be running through a couple of things to begin with. Initially, we'll do an introduction to CWSI. And if you just jump the slide on for me. Introduction to CWSI. I'm going to do a little bit of a poll as well, just to get a kind of temperature check of everyone on the call in terms of what people are currently doing and the current state they are. We're going to have a little bit of an introduction to what the state of ransomware is and what the current trends we're seeing, the current challenges that organizations are facing. And then Andy's going to take over and really going to start talking about what is threat hunting, why we do it, what data we can use, and then really kind of jump into some kind of live threat hunting simulations around some different personas and topics that we can cover today. So as I mentioned, we're going to start with a very quick poll just to show you, just to get an idea around what people are currently doing and how they're currently kind of approaching threat hunting. Whilst you're all quickly filling that in, we'll quickly introduce ourselves. So my name's Robin Timon, so I'm the UK Sales Director here at CWSI. Andy?
Yeah, morning everybody. My name's Andy James, Managing Director and Co-founder at Custodian 360.
Perfect. So we'll give everyone just a couple more seconds just to complete the poll and to see what kind of results we kind of get back. Okay, great. Hopefully everyone's had enough time to complete that for us. So if we look at the results that we've kind of currently got, so what do the organizations currently do around threat hunting? So some, 12% have got a dedicated team, 42% is handled by the general cybersecurity team, 21% do not currently engage in threat hunting, 19% of are planning to soon, and 7% are not sure. So we've got a good mix of people on the call, which is good. So hopefully the content we've kind of got lined up will be suitable for all of you. So very quickly in terms of who CWSI are, so our purpose is to effectively enable the world, anyone to work from anywhere in a secure manner. So to do that, what we effectively do is we help organizations to secure their systems whilst hopefully reducing the complexity, effort and cost to own and manage and maintain those for them. We aim to simplify the user experience for employees, the customers and business partners to enable the business to provide the best services possible. Trying to aim to increase both security and productivity at the same time. It's a fine balance in that I'm sure everyone's aware of, but finding that kind of sweet medium where people can be as productive as possible whilst ensuring that we're securing the corporate data and assets included. And also provide people the ability to be confident in meeting and exceeding any compliance and regulatory demands that are held against them. To do that, we kind of have four key pillars. So we focus around the securing the cloud, so ensuring your cloud environment is secure and scalable to move your business. Ensuring we're enabling users to work in the way they want to work on any device in any location, but in a secure manner. Ensuring that the applications that they're actually accessing are built and maintained in a secure and appropriate manner as well. And also then looking at any of the regulatory compliance areas where we need to make sure that we are covered and adhering to. So as an organization, we've been doing this for a number of years and worked with a range of different organizations in that space. Not going to go through line by line, but hopefully just give you an idea of the different sizes and organizations that we've kind of worked with. So if we kind of jump onto the topic of today, what is the current state of ransomware? So when we look at that as a kind of high level view, there's some really interesting stats that have kind of come through. So currently from the cybersecurity awareness survey from last year, 50% of businesses have experienced some sort of cybersecurity breach or attack in the past year. On a daily basis, we're seeing these kind of attacks coming up in the news, and we're seeing it more and more. Out of those 50%, around 20% of all cyber attacks recorded have involved some sort of ransomware. So it's clearly a key method that organizations are using to use these kind of attacks. And a typical length for an organization to identify someone in there is around 277 days. So these hackers aren't jumping in and doing something on day one. They're sitting there, they're waiting, and they're using their time to find out what they want to get from the organizations and how far they can go. The flip side of that is, what are the challenges that's facing us as businesses? The first one is, how do we keep pace with these new threats? On a daily basis, hourly basis, enhancements, different methods, different techniques are being used to try to hack organizations. How do we make sure that our internal teams and partners are keeping up to date with all of these kind of new methods, but also the new technologies are out there that we can use to adhere and reduce the risk of this happening? And finally, the general lack of time. A lot of, as we've seen from that poll, not many organizations have a dedicated team that are focused on this. We're looking at more generalist cybersecurity or general IT users who are trying to balance the BAU activities as also doing these kind of activities as well. So there's lots of challenges that are facing organizations, and hopefully from today's session, we'll talk you through how we can approach this, why we do it, and some different tools and techniques and scenarios that you're going to possibly come up against. So I'm just going to hand over to Andy now, who's going to start talking you through what is threat hunting and why we do it.
Lovely, thanks, Robin. So what I'm going to do this morning is just have a sort of quick chat around threat hunting, what it is, why we do it, and how we do it, and then we're going to jump into a number of scenarios and look at what we can do in each of those different scenarios. So when we sort of look at threat hunting and what it is, we can sort of split into two areas. There's another, I suppose, two areas that we can look at or call it as proactive or reactive. But we have cyber threat hunting, which is generally a proactive security search through networks, endpoints, data sets, hunting for malicious, suspicious, or risky activities. We have a lot of controls and solutions in place within our different environments, but unfortunately none of those are 100% effective. So we always have that small chance that something may evade detection by our existing tool set. So threat hunting becomes a really valuable element within our security stack that allows us to sort of firstly decide on the things we want to hunt for, work out how we're going to hunt for them, and we can sort of turn a reactive threat hunting process into a proactive threat hunting process really quickly and easily. We then have hypothesis-based threat hunting, where we're sort of looking at a limited evidence from a security environment. So we may see a certain alert type and think there's more to this than is being displayed here. And we can take that as a starting point and then investigate further from that. And certainly that's one of the scenarios that we'll look at this morning as we go through. So why hunt? As we mentioned, not everything is 100% effective. So there are certain elements that we'll get through. There are always new and emerging threats. New vulnerabilities are discovered all the time, and exploits are built for those vulnerabilities. So attackers become armed with new tool sets that they can use against us. And in that scenario, it's a race against time. Who can patch before the exploit is deployed against you? Again, with threat hunting, part of the things that we can do is identify systems that have vulnerabilities and prioritize those from a patching perspective. So it allows us to sort of maybe not stay ahead of the attackers, but keep pace with the attackers. And sort of in those scenarios, attackers will only be looking for systems that are vulnerable. If we can stop systems being vulnerable, they're not going to look at those systems. So we've defeated the attacker straight away. We can look at well-known techniques, tactics, and procedures. MITRE framework does a really good job of documenting a lot of the TTPs that are in use. And again, with one of our scenarios, we'll look at how we can leverage those TTPs and IOCs from well-documented attack scenarios. Really useful tool set to understand that, to understand the types of techniques that are in use and how we can then create searches to look for them. Again, it takes us from reactive to proactive as we work through our threat hunting scenarios. And we can also look at common post-exploit activity. So we may miss an exploit. Somebody may gain access to a machine through any number of means. And typically when they do, they're going to perform certain activities to work out where they are. Again, we can look for those activities. And again, the first time we do it, it's a sort of reactive approach to that. We've discovered something, we go and search for it. Once we've done it once, we can do it again, time and time again. And part of what we're going to look at today as well is how we can automate a lot of the threat hunting, so we can take away a lot of the heavy lifting and make life a little easier for ourselves. Data, I guess data is the crucial element. If we're going to perform threat hunting, we need data. We've got different types of data. Endpoint data gives us, a huge data set that we can look through. And when we talk endpoints, we can talk, laptops, desktops, servers, cloud containers, cloud applications as well within there. So we can classify endpoint as those. And the majority of threats will run at some point on some form of end user compute device. So it's a good place to be looking. We can spot lots of things in there that may not be detected by standard solutions. And from there, we can also start to identify things like insider threat activity as well. Network data can also provide us with a lot of valuable information. Certainly when we look at sort of edge firewall data, we may see those being probed, or we may see them being attacked. And we've certainly got to look at vulnerabilities on edge firewalls. Switches, access points, it's a lot of traffic going through those, a lot of connections day in, day out. Again, it's useful to have that data. And then we can look at other platforms. So we can ingest from all types of other platforms into one place. So one of the key things that we need to do as well with data is to centralize data, make it easy for ourselves to hunt through the data set that we collect. So today, what we're going to do is to focus on endpoint data. Now, with the these sessions that we run quite often, we try not to be too specific around a single vendor. We are going to be using the SentinelOne platform today. In theory, any platform could be used though. Okay, so although we'll look at a single vendor, it's a vendor that we work with ourselves, and it is very effective. But that's not to say that any other platform could not achieve the same results. The key element is a data lake. So we can put data from any platform into a data lake, and that data can be searched. There's various data retention periods that we can look at with data lakes. It can get expensive to do once you start storing large volumes of data. And as we sort of go through the scenarios today, you'll see there is huge volumes of data that we're looking at. So it is an area to be aware of. If you want to collate data from every platform, every source, then there is huge volumes of storage needed for that. Again, open source is available. So everything that we'll look at today can, in theory, be done on open source tools. It's very easy to sort of jump straight down the open source route and think that's the best route to go down. It can be quite expensive to deploy and configure open source tooling, and you just need to bear in mind that if you're going down that route, you also need people that know these open source tools and tool sets to manage them day to day. So it's, if you're embarking on a threat hunting journey, and looking at what you need, crucially, the sort of key element for all of it is where the data sits, how you index it, how you search it, how it's presented, so that people can understand what's in front of them. So as I say, we picked a few scenarios today to run through. So the first scenario we're going to look at in a moment is effectively, your classic call to the help desk. The users clicked something and some funny things have been happening on their machine. So it happens, very often. And what we're going to do is then look at that machine within a certain time range and look at activities that have happened and really focus in on unusual activities and try and identify what a potential attacker has done. The second scenario, we're sort of going to assume we've had an alert that APT groups are targeting our sector, and we're going to start looking for APT group activity across all of our machines, and do all of that at scale and with speed. And again, both of these we can look to turn into automated functions that will then run continuously. So very much, we're reacting to a situation and now we're changing into proactive threat hunting scenarios. And then the last element that we're going to look at is, and we say AI, we take that with a pinch of salt. Effectively, we're looking at large language models and how they can be used to aid analysts. Okay, so one of the scenarios we're going to look at is how we can task a junior analyst with a task that, without the help of outside forces, they would probably struggle to do. And we're going to lean on AI and LLM to help them do this task and look at how that could be done. Again, we're going to use an AI engine that's built in to the SentinelOne platform. There's nothing to say that you couldn't do this with any other LLM solution that's available on the market. So what we'll do then is dive in, and we'll take a look at our data and what we can do with that. So what we have, as I say, with SentinelOne is our data lake. What we've done here is just populated data. So we've run a query over the last 4 hours here. This is into our sort of demo environment. We only run a few machines in here, so there's not a huge amount of data that gets populated into here. But you can see that we've 100 or over 140,000 results come through into here. So it's across about 4 or 5 machines, I think, currently running. We have a number of products that are feeding into here. So as you can see, our SentinelOne is feeding in Windows event logs. We're taking indicators, so behavioral indicators, identity alerts. So again, we're looking at Azure AD, on-premise AD, and taking alerts from those. Activity feeds is sort of things that are going on with the platform, as are alerts, and asset data sort of speaks for itself. So the sort of key element of data that we're going to be looking at today is the SentinelOne data and how that comes through for us. We also then have our data split down by the various fields, so we can go and search by field data within here as well. So effectively, it's making it as easy as possible for us to find the information that we're looking for. So as I say, our first scenario is a call from a user to say something strange happened on their machine between 8:30 and 8:45 this morning. So as a help desk, how do we react to that? So one of the first things we can do is go and find our endpoint. So we have our fields broken out by endpoint name here. So we're going to go and pick our machine, and it's this machine in question. So we can include this into our search query straight away. What we're going to do then is look at other events that are feeding into here, and we can see Windows event logs is reasonably noisy because that's feeding in. We're not too concerned about the Windows event logs at the moment, so we're going to exclude that from our search. And then we're going to change our time frame as well. So as we say, we know that our event happened sometime between 8:30 and 8:45 this morning. So we'll change our search window to that, and we'll click on to go here. Now we've still got a reasonable number of events to look through here, and a lot of the events that we'll see coming through here are going to be normal. There's nothing of concern within here. As you see, we can see everything that happens. So any process creation, file renames, file deletions, file creations, registry key entries, logins, logouts, everything is logged within here. So we can, if we look at our event here, we understand that the user's clicked a link, they've done something. So what we're going to do is identify certain elements within here. So what we're going to do is sort of come down and look at elements like source process name, what's gone on, what's been running within here. And we can see that we've got some command window activity running on our machine here. So what we'll do is include that into our search query as well, and reduce that down. And now we've got very few events. So we're just looking at 12 events now. So that's going to make it easy to identify what's gone on within this. We can see we've got some colouring to the side of the window here, which sort of highlights to us that this is potentially something odd going on a machine. So we can see our user that's logged on at the time. This may be a different user to the user that we were expecting. Okay, so we can take a look through this. And what we can see is that we're looking here at a process creation from Explorer, targeting the command.exe. And what we can do is scroll across with that, and we can start to see what's happened. So we can see straight away here that somebody's run who am I against this machine. And we can see further up, we've got a lot of net.exe processes running here as well. If we continue to come across, we can now start to see the actual commands that are being run against this machine. So first off, we've got a who am I /all, then /privilege, and then we're looking at the users against the domain. So we're starting to see some domain enumeration happening here, looking at the groups within the domain, now looking at who's in the domain admins group as well. What we can then see here, which is a bit of a problem for us straight away, we can see a new user being added to the domain. Now, unfortunately, with the machine that we've got here, we've actually got a user logged on now as administrator. So straight away, somebody's got administrator rights, which allows them to create new users within our Active Directory structure. So we can see the user being created, and we can see an incorrect command there, and then a correct command after that to add that user that's just been created into the domain admin group. Now we can see the same user being added to the local machine. So we've got a local account being created as well, and that being added into the local administrators group. And then we can see that we've got our user being added into the remote desktop users group. So we've got quite a big problem at this stage. We've got a new user created as a domain admin, and it's been given remote desktop rights to log on to this particular machine. So pretty quickly, within a matter of a few minutes, the user has clicked a link, it's spawned a process onto a machine that's allowed an attacker to gain access, and that attacker has had a look through our domain structure, registered a user, and has then from that point gone on to gain persistence within our network. So in theory, they can come back anytime they like. But as Robin mentioned at the start, 277 days to identify. You can imagine the damage that the attacker can then go on and do if it's going to sit within our environment for around 9 months with direct access onto machines. Now, crucially with this, what we can do from here with this data in this environment is actually treat this as threat data now. So we could go and mark this as a threat and then remediate against it. Not all platforms allow you to do that. Certainly, if you're working with open source platforms, it's giving you the data. It allows you to go and do something about this. First things to do clearly is to remove the user account from Active Directory, remove it from the local group, local machine as well, and that cuts off that access. You may well just want to re-image that machine and start from fresh. But what you can also then do is query this data across a whole heap of machines. So with this in mind, what we can do is say we can sort of build a scenario from here and say this is the type of activity that an attacker would carry out. So we can then start to build a search query around this data. So we can be a little bit more generic with it. It doesn't have to include the username, etc., the password. But if anybody is carrying out, a net user command, then we need to know about it pretty quickly. So what we would do in this situation is to change our query a little bit here. So we're sort of looking for this type of activity. So we can sort of copy part of this and go and create a target process command line activity query around this. We can then save that query so that we can run it as often as we want to. We can create something within here that's called a star rule, which is an active response rule. Allows us to create what we call custom rules that look for activities, and we can choose to mark it as a threat automatically. We do also have automated queries that run within the data lake independently and alert against activity. So we've got a number of options here where we can start to build those queries around that and identify or stop this activity from happening again. So that would be sort of one of our key areas of threat hunting activity that we would look at. So if we clear our query here, and we'll sort of move on to our second scenario now. So as I say, part of threat hunting is subscribing to threat intelligence. Now that threat intelligence can come from all sorts of places, whether you choose to pay a company to provide you with a threat intelligence source that will give you information around threat activity in the wild, or you can choose to go and identify sources yourself and create alerts, create feeds around that. However you want to do it, getting intelligence is key to threat hunting. So in this scenario, what we can say is we've sort of had a notification come through on threat intelligence that we as a business involved in the finance sector are being actively targeted by certain APT groups. Okay, so armed with that intelligence, the sensible thing for us to do is to work out what those APT groups are doing, okay, how we can identify their activities. So we're going to go off and find some IOCs or indicators of compromise related to those various APT groups. And what we've done is pick 2 today, and we're going to have a look for activities that relate to that. So we picked APT group 38 and APT group 28, otherwise known as Fancy Bear. And we're going to take a look and see if we can spot some activity related to them. Now, there's a lot of ways that we can do these types of queries. So what we'll do is just change our data set back to say the last 4 hours here. We'll see when we look at that as well, we can go back pretty much any time frame we want. So we have default sort of settings here, 72 hours. We can go 14 days, 90 days, 180, 365 days if we want to within here to look for that data. But 4 hours in this instance is probably going to be okay for us. So one of the things we know with the APT groups is they use certain domain names, they use certain IP addresses. If you Google indicators compromise for APT38, it will return you a list of domains and a list of IP addresses. So we're going to take some of that data. The first thing we can do is start to build a query. So we've got their URL address, and we're going to make that equals. And then we're going to look for and start filtering that down into one that we know that they make use of. So in this instance, we're going to be looking for mountainriver.net. And we can run a really simple query around that. We don't get any results hit back on that. What we could do though is change this and say, let's see if anybody's attempted to look up our mountainriver.net domain, which could also indicate activity. So our DNS request not returning again any information around that domain. What we can then do is say, let's start to look at things like destination IP addresses. So where we had our IOCs, they will have had a number of IP addresses within that. So we can start to again look for that information, and we'll pick one here and go through that and run that query, and we get a hit on that. So we can see again, it's our same sheet that we were looking at just now, unsurprisingly. But what we can see is a telnet connection going somewhere. So we can see the source of that and the destination attempting to hit this IP address, which is a known IOC for APT38. So we may be a little bit concerned about this. It's unusual to see telnet being used on machines, and unusual to see that hitting a known IOC for an APT group. So again, now we may choose to continue our search within here, or what we could do at this stage is sort of pivot into something that we have here, which is called power queries. And what that allows us to do is to create much larger queries. So what we can do is just take one that we created earlier to save me typing lots of information. And with that power query, what we can do is build up a lot of information within a single query. So we're looking at URL or event DNS request for one domain, source IP address, destination IP address, and what we're going to do then is sort this as well. So we can start to tell it what columns we want to see within here. We're going to sort it by the event time, and we're going to take just 1,000 results. So we could reduce this down to say 10 events. We only want to see 10 events within here. And it's presenting the information that we want to see straight away within our power queries. Again, what we could do is save this search. With this one, what we can do here, say, so APT38, we're going to take a copy of this and we'll pivot into our alerts. And what we can then do is create an alert. So we'll call our alert APT38 activity. We're going to run a power query rows query on that, so we'll paste that in. And then we've got alert conditions. So we're going to trigger if in the past 2 minutes the number of rows in the Power Query table is greater than, let's say 5, let's say 3. Within there, we're going to alert, and we're going to run this every 1 minute against our data set. Now we could add notifications. We're not going to bother in this instance, and we're not going to send on a resolution, because if we see the activity, we want to know about it straight away. Power Query must include a group. Okay, so we haven't quite got our Power Query correct within here. But if we had that right, we could save our alert, and that alert is going to run every 1 minute against our data lake. We can take this out, say just run every 6 hours. That's enough for us. So there's a number of things we can do here around certain data sets and how we can identify it, how we can alert to it, and be aware that these things are happening. So if we just cancel out of that, we'll move on to our sort of final scenario that we're going to work through today. So as I say, what we're going to do here is start to lean on AI or LLM. So we have Purple AI, which is built into the SentinelOne platform. And to say, what we're going to do here is task a junior analyst with going and searching for high-risk behavioural indicators within our data set. When they identify the sort of most high-risk indicators, we then want them to present some data to us, tell us why we should be concerned about it and the next steps that we should take around that data. So potentially quite a big task that normally may go to a more senior analyst to allow them to do it. But as I say, we're going to task a junior with this and see how they get on. So we can start to ask Purple AI some questions. So we're going to ask what machines have the most high. Actually, before we do that, we'll just change the time frame because default time frame for this is 24 hours. We're going to widen that a little bit. So we're going to set our time frame to 48 hours that we're going to search data over. So that's going to work out what I'm asking it to do. And then it's changed the default time range. So now we're searching over 48 hours. So really, simplistic command that I can issue to the platform. The AI engine then takes that, converts that into a language that the platform understands. So now we can go ahead and ask our questions. So what machines have the most high risk behavioral indicators? So what it's going to do now is analyze our data, work out how to present that as a query that the platform can understand. It will then show us the query and run the query and produce results based on that. It'll also then go a stage further. So you can see the query being built. It runs it. We can see that we've got 7 results found against various machines within here. We've got the highest to the lowest, as it were. What it's doing now is sort of getting some suggestions for what I may want to ask next. Now I know what I want to ask next, but we'll allow it to think for a moment before we ask that. Let's start typing our next question in. So what we're going to ask is which specific high risk behavioral indicators are most prevalent on the machine. And we're going to pick one. Oh, there we go. And then we'll run our query against that. So that's going to now look at a specific machine. and give us some results around that. So we get our query built, we get our results, and what we can do then is sort of pick one out, and we can see in here keylogger installation. You know, we sort of know what that is. Sensitive memory access, again, understood. Core DLL read, understood. But edge forbidden spawn, what's that? So as a junior analyst, we don't really understand what that is. So let's ask. So we can ask our question there, and it's going to work out what we're asking and give us an answer against that. Once we understand what it is, then we can move on from there. So effectively, things leaking out of or processes being spawned by Microsoft Edge, so browser. So what we can do is say, okay, is this known? So what is the MITRE technique number for that edge forbidden spawn? So then that's going to go and look it up. Again, we could Google this, but the platform's going to do it for us. Keep it all in one place at this stage. So we've got a workbook that we're working through. These can be shared amongst the team. So if we run through a notebook, we find a lot of information that we think is useful, then we can share that with the team as well. So we've got our return back. So T1189 is the MITRE attack number for that. So we're going to search for that happening. So we're going to build a query around T1189 and see whether or not that's prevalent within our environment, whether it's something we sort of really need to be concerned about or not. So we'll get our results back there. So we have a bit of information around this one that's come back with this time. So drive-by compromise, etc. So quite a common technique that's used. Land on a website, potentially leak into the browser, and go from there. So what we're going to do then is try and identify some use of that within our environment also, or look at what else is involved within that. So we're looking for the details of the source processes involved within this to get that information out. Once we've got that, we'll start querying for that, and we can see actually we've got quite a lot of this going on within our environment, so we maybe weren't expecting that. So what we can say now is create an alert to identify this behavior. The platform's going to do a lot of the there we go. Yeah, so it's going to do a lot of the lifting for us here, and come back with a query now that we can take and paste into our alerts, so that we've got an alert running against any of this activity happening again in the future. Once we've done that, we can then be alerted to that. So it's going to tell us exactly what we need to do here to create that. So now I need to start gathering some further information. So why should we be concerned? Concerned by this MITRE T1189. So now it's starting to gather information around that, tell us what we may or why we should be concerned about that. And from there, what we can then do is start to sort of build out the response. So it's given us, lots of information around that, why it's a problem, the concerning technique, several reasons that gives us information here. So what I'm going to do now is ask it to write me an email. So I want an email to share a summary of the workbook with my team. Okay, so I don't want to have to not typed in the right place. So can you write me an email to share a summary of this workbook with my team? So rather than share the whole workbook and say, team, you might be interested in this, maybe not spelt correctly, but hopefully it'll understand that and write me an email to share the summary of the workbook. So there we now have, as a junior analyst, to get this information into a draft email that we can just monitor or modify slightly before sending out is a huge help. So from there, we're sort of alerting the team to why we should be concerned about it. Now what we need to do is sort of consider our security policy. So we want an entry for our security policy relating to this. So we can then send this across. So we'll get our security policy, again, not typed particularly well. So we'll get our security policy come up in a moment. And then final step, we can now elevate this to management. So we've got all the data that we need. Hopefully if I haven't confused it too much. So we'll start typing in the last element while it's thinking. There we go. So we've got then an entry into our security policy that we were after. And now it's just last stage for me as an analyst is to elevate this up to my manager so that the actions from within the workbook can then be implemented within the policy, and it will come from the management team, and they'll have all the information they need to justify this. So again, what we've got now is a draft of the email, purpose of the policy entry, key components, why we need it, next steps. So if you're going to receive that as a manager from a junior analyst, you can understand that we're sort of elevating those analysts from what may be pretty menial tasks previously to now feeling involved and really part of the team. So that is sort of everything that we were going to cover today from a sort of practical perspective. So what I'm going to do now is just hand you back to Robin to open the floor for questions and conclude the session. But thanks for your attendance today, everybody. Hopefully it's been helpful.
Yeah, that was brilliant, Andy. Thank you very much. Has anyone got any questions from anything we've kind of run through today? If you could just drop them in the chat, happy to kind of run through any kind of questions anyone has. And whilst people are doing that, if anyone wants to kind of delve into anything we kind of run through a little bit more detail with Andy or any other team, feel free to scan the link on the screen as you can see there. It'll take you to a landing page where you can book in a session where we can tailor things to a little bit more around kind of what your problems are, what you're seeing, or simply if you just want to have a chat around where to start and what to do, feel free to get that sessions booked in. So one question coming for the moment, Andy. does it matter if they've got multiple different security suppliers that they're using at the moment to try and centralize?
No, it shouldn't be really. Again, it's the data which is key. So centralization of data. Now, if you've got multiple providers, in theory, one should be able to centralize data from the others, and it's working out how you want to do that, which of the providers or suppliers is best placed to provide that for you. I guess that's the sort of key element, but no, it doesn't matter, how many providers are involved in it. It can still be done.
Okay, and how can threat hunting teams ensure mobile devices stay secure without kind of limiting people's ability to work remotely or out and about?
Yeah, so there's a lot of good solutions from a mobile threat detection and response perspective. Again, good policy sets within those, but data from those can feed into the data lake as well, so we can start to look across every device. So that's sort of the key. Clearly identifying the solutions that you want to use to secure devices, platforms, etc. But those devices, as well as being sort of best of breed, those solutions, as well as being best of breed to secure those device types, also needs to have the ability to share data into the data lake, so that you've got all of that in one place. And it gives, as well, when you're sort of responding to incidents, it gives you so much context around exactly what's happened at that stage. So it makes it a lot easier to understand how a threat started, how it ingressed, and what happened from there. So yeah, the more data you can get, the better.
Okay, we've got one more. What kind of costs are involved in this type of service?
Again, the bulk of the cost is going to be data. So how much it costs to hold the data. I guess one of the advantages that sort of we bring is threat hunting at a global level. So we're not always threat hunting for individual customers. We're threat hunting across a large number of customers at any one point. So if you're doing it yourself, then it's your task against your data set. If somebody else is doing it for you across centralized data, it can reduce the cost with that because of the scale that it's running at. So you're paying a fraction of the cost that it may cost you to have it done individually.
Okay, perfect. One final one here. For businesses that don't have a dedicated security team, what should they be telling users to look for, identify, that they can help kind of support the team they've currently got?
I guess, we sort of do a lot of training as well, end user training around security awareness, and it's anything which is suspicious. Somebody needs to know about it. So within any organisation, there has to be a reporting structure. Now, if there is no sort of dedicated security team within an organisation, then the organisation needs to sort of work out who is going to receive notifications from users, as it were, and what they can then do with that. Because it's a lot of things happen to users. They will notify people that I clicked this happened. I don't think that should have happened. Something has to happen beyond that, though. And if there's not the capability within the organisation, then ideally, they should engage with an organisation that can support them with that. It may be that it's a bit of general support, or it may be dedicated all the way up through dedicated incident response from that. So there's a huge number of things that can be done. But ultimately, it's the ability to report, so people are aware and action can be taken.
Okay. One other question we had. Yes, the session was recorded today, so this recording will be shared with everyone who's registered and attended. So that'll come through for you, if not later today, at some point tomorrow. And it looks like all the questions I can see that have come through. So unless anyone's got any others, I think just want to say thanks again, Andy. Really great session today. Really good, interesting kind of thing we can run through. And like I mentioned, if anyone does want to have another follow-up session with Andy or any of the wider team, just take a picture of that link there and feel free to get that booked in.